When people talk about ADHD and autism, they usually bring up the behaviors commonly associated with those disorders. The thing is, though, that neurodivergence is an internal neurological difference. A lot goes on in our heads that other people can't see. And that's why in this video, I'm sharing 5 more internal signs that you're neurodivergent. Let's get started. If you're new here, I'm Kristen, a fellow ADHDer, neurodivergent art teacher, and creative mindset coach. And it's my belief that in order to thrive neurodivergently, we need to design a life that works for us instead of against us. And that's hard to do if you don't know what you're looking for. If you've been researching neurodivergence for any amount of time, then you've probably noticed that the symptoms are a list of behaviors that irritate neurotypical people. Things like showing up late and fidgeting openly. And although these are helpful examples for us to figure out if we might be neurodivergent, they don't speak of our experience. They speak of how we're being perceived by others. So they may ring true, but they don't actually help us understand ourselves any better. Take time blindness, for instance. ADHDers often show up late and we can get lost in hyperfocus when we're doing a project. But these aren't the only ways that time blindness can affect us. We have a perception of time that is more sensitive to its reality. So we can remember things from the past and feel them very much like they just happened. We have difficulty perceiving how long something's going to take, even if we've done it many, many, many times before. It also means that we're likely to look and or feel a different age to our actual biological age. If time doesn't feel like it can be broken down into equal sequential pieces, then it's a good chance that you have time blindness. And it's another pretty good chance that you're neurodivergent. I like to think that time blindness has nothing to do with being blind at all. I think it is that we are sensitive to the reality of time, which is not linear or sequential. This means that we're often much better at creating a second and third act later in life than most neurotypicals. We don't have to follow the path that most people have taken. We can circle back and go back to school and start brand new careers at the age of 50. When it comes to time, a minute can feel like a blink of an eye or a lifetime. And that's true for everybody, neurotypicals included. So the fact that we struggle to break time down into the man-made system, like the clock system, is an indication that we're just not meant to follow the same rules that everyone else is. And the second sign is a need for extra processing time. Neurodivergents take in more information compared to neurotypical brains, and we discard less thanks to a lack of neural pruning, which is our brain's natural ability to sort through all the information we have and disregard the stuff that isn't relevant. We hold on to way more of that irrelevant knowledge. That means that when we're processing a thought or a feeling, it takes longer because we have more work to do. This may look like audio processing differences where we struggle to understand what someone said until halfway through they're saying it a second time, or that we just have to take a moment to think about our responses before we answer during a conversation. But it also means that it's going to take us longer to process things like grief and heartbreak. This shouldn't be confused with executive dysfunction, which didn't make the list simply because it's too big a subject. Sign number 3 is task paralysis. Neurodivergents have a difference in brain function and structure. And one of the main problems is that the thinking part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, struggles to communicate with other parts of the brain, mainly the doing part when it comes to task paralysis. That means that we can be sitting on the couch scrolling our phones for hours, internally screaming at ourselves to just get up and do the thing. and yet we still can't convince ourselves to get up and do the thing. It may look like relaxation, but there is no relaxing going on. You're stressing out about the fact that you can't physically make yourself get up. You may be filled with shame or guilt or self hatred. So, if this sounds like you, then you're probably in task paralysis and you're very likely to be neurodivergent. And this is one of the most misunderstood symptoms of neurodivergence because it's automatically seen as lazy when in reality it is definitely an executive dysfunction issue. And being called out for behaviors that you have very little control over can easily lead to our sign number 4, which is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. ADHDers especially have a visceral reaction to rejection. We feel it far stronger than anybody else. In fact, we can feel rejected when the situation that we were in is completely neutral. A lot of this comes down to the fact that we exist in a world that doesn't often accept us as we are. So, this rejection sensitivity is a defense mechanism. That being said, it's also an issue with brain structure. We have a smaller amygdala, and that's the part of the brain that processes emotions. So it takes us longer to process the emotion of feeling rejected. Rejection sensitivity dysphoria is one of the hardest symptoms for ADHDers to deal with. Yet you won't find it on that diagnostic criteria because it is not an observable behavior, despite the fact that it causes the most damage. So it easily leads to things that are observable, like perfectionism and people pleasing. So if the tiniest bit of constructive criticism tends to send you into a spiral, then there's a good chance that you're dealing with RSD and that you are neurodivergent. And before I get to the 5th internal sign, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. It's really helpful to know that these videos are giving value, and it helps motivate me to make more. The 5th internal sign of neurodivergence is perpetual outsidership. If you've spent your entire life feeling like you don't fit anywhere, especially if there doesn't seem to be any other factors that make it so that you don't belong, then chances are you are neurodivergent. We struggle to fit in no matter who we're with, except for perhaps other neurodivergents. And that's the list. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped. And I will see you next week. Bye.